من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا كثيرا طيبا طاهرا مباركا فيه وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم حبب إلينا الإيمان وزينه في قلوبنا وكره إلينا الكفر والفسوق والعصيان واجعلنا من عبادك الراشدين. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and peace and blessings be upon His beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Continuing inshallah with the Khilafah of Umar ibn al-Khattab radiyallahu anhu wa ardaahu, and we mentioned last week with regards to the beginning or the second phase of the battles in Iraq and the taking over of al-Iraq. As we mentioned previously in the Khilafah of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, in which the wars or the fight with the Persians began during the time of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu. At the end of his time, the openings of Iraq began. And after the death of the Khalifa Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu, Umar ibn al-Khattab, he continued the openings and he continued to send armies and troops towards Persia to continue the legacy that Umar or that Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiyallahu anhu had established during his time. And the one that began the openings in al-Iraq was al-Muthanna ibn Haritha al-Shaybani radiyallahu anhu, one of the famous tabi'een and one of the prominent names of the history of Islam and the history of the battles of Islam. And then Khalid ibn Walid radiyallahu anhu, he took over that fight and he established the existence or the presence of the Muslimin in al-Iraq, and then he was sent or needed elsewhere and was sent to Asham. And then the fighting continued in Iraq, in that area in which the Persians had established their grounds. And we mentioned that Umar radiyallahu anhu, he had appointed Abu Ubaid al-Thaqafi as the leader of the armies of Iraq, and then he went and he began or he continued the legacy of the openings in Iraq. And we mentioned last week, we got up to the battle of the bridge, which happened in the 13th year after the hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So 13 years after the hijrah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so early days of the Khilafah of Umar. Because as we know, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he lived 10 years after the hijrah. So 3 years after the death of the Prophet ﷺ is the 13th year of hijrah. And a quick reminder of the battle of the bridge, because this is where Abu Ubaid, the leader of the armies, was martyred. He was martyred at this battle, and this battle took place after the Persians had lost great losses. Because what we said and we mentioned last week is that with the coming of Abu Ubaid, the Persians gathered 3 armies to fight him. And these 3 armies, by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by the glad tidings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they were destroyed. These 3 armies singularly were destroyed by the Muslimin, by Abu Ubaid radiyallahu anhu. After that loss, the Persians regathered, regrouped, and sent another large army to fight the Muslimin. And it's very important that we always mention that here we are talking about an empire. The Persian Empire is an empire that was around for hundreds of years. So the ability to send army after army was something that was easy for them. They already had it all planned out. They had their stash of arms, they had their areas. They were ready for these things, and they were always ready to send armies. That's why they continually sent army after army until at the end they were drained. So they sent another army to fight Abu Ubaid radiyallahu anhu after they regrouped, and they appointed Rustam as the leader of the Persians. And just a bit of history, because this is important. At this time, Kisra had died, and there was no legal inheritor for Kisra, because Rustam and the people who were around him, they had killed all his brothers. All the male inheritors were killed. The 17 brothers that he had were taken out, so that no one, because they follow the kingship, the legacy. If Kisra dies, the second male in line takes over. So they got rid of all the male inheritors of the empire of Persia. And they made sure that there was no male inheritor or someone to take place of Kisra. So who took run or ruling of Persia was Rustam and Fayrazan, who was the wife of Kisra. She took the leadership of the people, and he was given the leadership of the armies. And they split the leadership between them. So Rustam, he was the leader of the armies, and he was the leader of the going to war in these matters. So they gathered around Rustam. So he mobilized a large army in the leadership of Bahman. And this leader was sent to an area in which the Muslimin had gathered on one side of the river, and they gathered on the other side of the river. Between them is a bridge, a large bridge. So the Persians sent word to the Muslimin, either you cross over, you come to us, or we come to you. Choose one of the two. Abu Ubayd radiallahu anhu, with his enthusiasm, he's excited, he wants to fight, they've been winning, they've been taking out the Persians one army after the other. He's enthusiastic. The armies of the Muslimin, they said, let them come to us. It's a mistake for us to go and cross the river and fight them. Abu Ubayd, he insists, he says, no. Are they more courageous than we are? For them to cross the river towards us, we are more courageous, we will go to them. We are the Muslimin, we will go to them. So Abu Ubayd, he took this army, 10,000 strong. Muslimin's army was 10,000 strong. And they crossed the river towards the Persian army. Now as soon as they crossed the river towards the Persian army, now they are what? Now they are cornered. The Muslimin are cornered. They're a large number. So the Persian army, they attack and they fight. What was one thing that the Persian army had that the Arabs never seen before or weren't used to fighting against? The Persians had elephants. They had trained elephants that they used to use to fight in their armies, to fight in their battles. And some of that which you see in the movies with the elephants and gather, this is true. The Persians, they used to train elephants, ride on them, put body armor around them, and they would fight. And they would train them to fight. So they had elephants with them, and on these elephants they used to put very big bells. So whenever horses would come near, they would shake the bells and the horses would get scared. So they can't go near them with horses. And these elephants are marching towards the Muslimin. Whenever they tried to come with the horses would run away. And the fierce fighting, the fighting got intense between the Muslimin and between the Persians, because behind the elephants you have the people with their bow and arrows, and they're shooting arrows towards the Muslimin, killing Muslimin. So it became a very big, there was a big loss to the Muslim army at that time. So Abu Ubayd, realizing this, he said the only way to defeat the Persians is to go on foot and to try to dismantle, to try to disable their elephants and to get rid of their elephants. And the only way to do this is to take off the saddles, to cut the saddles, to get the riders off the elephants. And in any army where there is elephants, just go quick history run, there's always one main elephant. There's an alpha male. There's an alpha elephant that's all the other elephants march behind and follow the orders of that elephant, which is usually a white, very big elephant. So Abu Ubayd, he attacks that one. And he climbs on, and the Muslimin, they are fighting. And he tries to dismantle the saddle of that elephant, but was unsuccessful, was stepped on and was martyred. Abu Ubayd radiallahu anhu. And he was killed trying to get rid of that elephant. And when he asked, before that he had asked, how do you kill an elephant? They said to him, you want to kill an elephant, you cut its trunk off. You cut the elephant's trunk off and the elephant will die. It will no longer be able to continue. Cut its trunk off. So who takes leadership after Abu Ubayd? His brother, Al-Hakam ibn Mas'ud. He takes leadership after his brother had passed away, after his brother had martyred, continues in the path of his brother, and is also killed. And then the three sons of Abu Ubaidah take leadership. 3 of them, one after the other, are also killed. And this, as we mentioned last week, this was one of the interpretations of the dream of his wife, where she saw them all dying, and then she saw them in Jannah. Who takes leadership after Abu Ubaid? Al-Muthanna. After the sons of Abu Ubaid, all those who were in line, Al-Muthanna ibn Harith al-Shaybani radiyallahu anhu takes leadership of the army. Now Al-Muthanna is in a place where I'm not going to be able to defeat this army. I'm cornered. I'm in a position where I can't fight. I need to think of how am I going to retreat, how am I going to move back and save as many of my soldiers as I can. And this goes back to the wisdom of war. As we mentioned before, Khalid ibn Walid radiyallahu anhu in the battle of Mu'tah, when they were fighting the Romans, when all of the leaders died and he took leadership, what he did is he retreated. He saved as many of the Sahaba he can, and he retreated back. You might lose this battle, but the war is still going. The fight is still going. You'd rather lose that fight and retreat, regain yourself, and then fight again, rather than lose everyone and not have an army, not have base, because that was the main army in Iraq. That was the main army that was there at that time. You lose that army, all the lands that you've taken over, you've opened, they will all fall back into the Persians. So Al-Muthanna, he tries to retreat, or he's thinking of a way to retreat back and to save as much as the Muslims as he can. One of the people in the army, he saw the people trying to retreat, Abdullah ibn Marthad. And when he saw the people retreating, he's excited, he's enthusiastic, he tries to dismantle, he tries to get rid of the bridge so that no one can retreat. No, you either have to die like your leaders died, or that's it. So Al-Muthanna, when he saw him trying to do this, he grabbed him, he said, "What are you doing?" He said, I'm not giving away for the Muslims to retreat, to return. He said, "This is not the time. This is the time now for us to save as many of the Muslimin that we can. It is not time for us to just die. There's another day. You don't have to die today. You don't have to die in this fight now. You can die another time. But now we have to be strategic. Now we have to know what we are doing." So Al-Muthanna radiyallahu anhu, he began to retreat with his army. It's not like, well, you just turn around and you walk away. No, there's a strategy that was laid down, and Al-Muthanna radiyallahu anhu, he was able to retreat with his army. And he got all of his army out of that area, at least the ones who were still alive. The battle began, there was 10,000 Muslimin. At the end of the battle, there was 5,000. 5,000 Muslimin were killed on the battle of the bridge against the Persians that day. 5,000. The number of the Persians was more. The number of the Persians that were killed was 6,000. 6,000 Persians were killed that day. And here the numbers are estimated. It's not exact, the numbers are estimated. 5,000 had returned, had lived. 2,000 of those 5,000 returned to Medina and the areas that they were in. So Al-Muthanna was left with 3,000 fighters. Al-Muthanna was left with 3,000 fighters. And these 3,000 fighters, you're talking that they are fighting, or that they are going to fight an empire, the Persian Empire. So as soon as the news reached to Umar radiyallahu anhu that the Persians had defeated the Muslimin in this battle, that Al-Muthanna, he retreated and he was able to save as much as he can with the Muslimin, Umar radiyallahu anhu, he immediately sent reinforcements. He immediately sent reinforcements towards Al-Muthanna radiyallahu anhu. From those whom he sent was Jarir ibn Abdullah al-Bajali radiyallahu anhu, the famous companion, and his people with him, and many other tribes. Umar radiyallahu anhu, he gathered them and he sent them towards Al-Muthanna radiyallahu anhu, who was able to mobilize his army, mobilize his people together, prepare the people for the next stage. Because it's not going to end there. This is one battle, one fight. Each person retreated, each person went back to where they are. It's not like that's it, khalas, salamu alaikum, we're not going to fight anymore, it's going to end. No. Each person, each leader is preparing for the next step. Each leader is preparing for the next fight that is going to happen. It's not something that you go there, you finish that day, and then that's it, khalas, you return home. No. It was a continuous It was a continuous battle against the Persians. So when the Persians heard of this large number of Muslimin coming out from the Arabian Peninsula towards Iraq, the Persian army regathered. And the Persian army gathered again, an army in which they sent towards al-Buwaib, which is an area in Iraq today. And al-Buwaib is also settled on a river. Is also settled on a river. In Iraq, there's two famous rivers, Dajla wal Furat. Dajla wal Furat are two famous rivers in Iraq. So this area, al-Buwaib, and an army always tries to gather where there's what? Where there's water, where there's resources, where there's, because you have thousands of men whom you have to feed, you have to comfort, you have to, it's not like you just send these people out and that's it. No, there's many resources that are used with regards to keeping the army alive itself and remaining alive within the army itself. So Al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu, he waited for these reinforcements to come, and he waited for the Persians, as he had already sent spies and he had already sent out eyes to see what's happening with the Persians. And this was something that was natural, was normal. You always have to send out spies, send out people to see the movements of the other army, of the other people. So when the news reached Al-Muthanna that the Persian armies were gathering, he sent a letter to Jarir ibn Abdullah and the army that was with him, meet me at al-Buwaib as the Persian army is gathering and is marching towards the Muslimin. So Al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu, he reached to the area of al-Buwaib, and Jarir ibn Abdullah came after him and joined the army of Al-Muthanna. And this was also in the 13th year after the Hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ, in the month of Ramadan. During the month of Ramadan, there's no break. When in the battle, in the war, there's no break. So in the month of Ramadan, when the armies had come and each one was on the other side of the river, so Al-Muthanna, he waited. Al-Muthanna, he waited. So the word was sent to Al-Muthanna, you either cross over to us or we cross over to you. Al-Muthanna said, no, you come and cross over to us. We're not going to make the same mistake twice, not going to make the same mistake as Abu Ubayd. So the Persian army, which was over 15-20,000, crossed over to meet the armies, to meet the soldiers of the Muslimin in the leadership of Al-Muthanna. Al-Muthanna has organized his army. He says to them, he gives out the order, I'll make takbir 3 times. The 4th takbir, you attack. So Al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu, he makes the first takbir. When he makes the first takbir, the Persian army attacks them. Because after the battle of the bridge, of the battle of Abu Ubayd, in which he was martyred, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, after he was martyred and they made the Muslimin retreat, what happened now to the Persians? They had more, the fear of the Muslimin decreased. Because of that one battle, that one confrontation, the fear of the Muslimin decreased. So from the first takbir of Al-Muthanna, the Persian army attacked the Muslimin and attacked the army of the Muslimin, and the war or the fight began. Very fierce, very intense fight between the Muslimin and between the Persians. Now Muthanna radiallahu anhu, he's watching, he's observing, and he's fighting. He's in the fight, but at the same time he's watching, he's observing. Because the leader of an army is always looking for an advantage. He's always looking for a weakness to take advantage of that place. You can't feel sorry. You can't feel, Allah, on the right flank they're weak and I feel sorry for them, back off. No. This is warfare. This is fighting, you're battling. So Al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu is looking for a weakness within the flanks of the Persian army. You have the right flank, the left flank, and then you have the middle. So Al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu, he's observing, he's watching, he sees the leader of the army of the Persian in the middle of the army of the Persians. So he tells the leaders of his army that I'm going to infiltrate, I'm going to push forward in the center. And I'm going to push forward until I reach the leader, you continue fighting on the flanks, and if I'm losing, if we are dying, stay on your areas, continue fighting where you are fighting. And al-Muthanna, he led the group of army in the middle and he attacked the Persians. Because as it's known that if you're able to take out the leader, then the rest of the army will become weak. That's not with the Muslimin. With the Muslimin, subhanAllah, whenever they've lost a leader and another leader has taken charge, the Muslimin have always overcome the loss of the leaders. As mentioned before, in the Battle of Mu'tah, 3 of the great Sahaba were killed. 3 of the great Sahaba were killed. Zayd ibn Thabit, or Zayd ibn Haritha, and Abdullah bin Rawaha, and Ja'far ibn Abi Talib. 3 great Sahaba were killed on that battle. And then even though Khalid Walid took over, he was able to retreat. So, al-Muthanna ibn Haritha, radiyallahu anhu, he entered and he went into the single or the middle of the army, trying to bring out the leader of the Persian army, to take the leader of the Persian army out. So al-Muthanna, he said to Anas ibn Bilal, "Oh Anas, if you see me attacking Mahran, who was the leader, join me, join into my arms and fight with me." And he said likewise to a couple of the other leaders of the Muslim army, radiyallahu anhum. So when he attacked Mahran and pushed him towards the right flank, al-Muthanna continued to put pressure on the army to continue to fight. The cause of the 2 armies met in combat, and the fight became very intense between the Muslimin and between the army of the Persians. And they continued pushing and pushing and pushing the Muslimin. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with them. And weaknesses started to show on the sides of the Muslimin. It's intense, it's fighting. It's fighting on the ground, face to face. The Muslimin, the armies, the battles back then, it was face to face combat. It was face to face combat in which you are facing the person that you are fighting, which is really doesn't happen these days. Which doesn't happen these days. So now it's the strength, now it's the iman, now it's the ability of the Muslimin. Because never in the history of Islam have the Muslimin ever put their reliability on numbers. Muslimin never think about numbers. When the Muslimin, when they put the reliability on their numbers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He punished them. وَيَوْمَ حُنَيْنٍ إِذْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ كَثْرَتُكُمْ فَلَمْ تُغْنِي عَنْكُمْ مِنَ اللَّهِ شَيْئًا. In the day of Hunayn, after the opening of Mecca, you thought you was a big number of Muslimin, 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 strong. You were happy with your numbers, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He straight away what? He straight away punished them for their thinking or giving reliance on their numbers. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَمْ مِنْ فِئَةٍ قَلِيلَةٍ غَلَبَتْ فِئَةً كَثِيرَةً بِإِذْنِ اللَّهِ. How many times has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala given victory to a small group over a large group by the will of Allah? By the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the Muslimin never put their reliability on their numbers. It was never about the quantity. Never about the quantity. It was always about the quality of the fighters. Always about the quality of the fighters. So al-Muthanna radiyallahu anhu, after this fierce confrontation is happening, he was able to infiltrate the middle of the army of the Persians. As he's doing so, his brother is killed, his brother is martyred. When they see his brother is killed and martyred, the Muslimin, the enthusiasm decreases a bit. So he looks back, he sees his brother, he says, don't be weakened by the death of my brother, for verily he is the one who came to this wishing and wanting for death. And if he didn't find it here, he would have found it somewhere else. So don't allow that to weaken you. Blacks, on the contrary, let it be a reason for you to push forward even more, to wish for that which is the sole purpose or the main purpose for your jihad in the first place, for your fighting in the first place. إحدى الحسنيين إما الشهادة وإما النصر. Either shahada or victory. This is one of the 2 goods that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has promised the Muslimin. So al-Muthanna radiyallahu anhu, he inflicted a large loss. The Muslimin inflicted a large loss on the Persian army. And al-Muthanna, he drove a wedge into the core of the Persian army. And from those who infiltrated and penetrated the Persians was Jarir ibn Abdullah al-Bajali, radiyallahu anhu, one of the famous Sahaba, radiyallahu anhu. And they were able to infiltrate, to penetrate the army of the Persians until they reached the leader of that army, and he was taken out and he was killed. And then when he was taken out and he was killed, the rest of the Persian army, they ran away, and the rest of the Persian army began to turn back, and the Muslimin continued fighting. What al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu he did, there's many details, but to go past them quickly inshallah. What al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu he did is that he got rid of the bridge behind them. And this was something that later on he regretted. He said, I regretted doing so. Because you don't want to, because when you corner someone, their fighting is going to become more fierce. Their fighting is going to, and it's not, the regret was not towards the Persians, but the regret was towards the Muslimin for the losses they could have had from cornering the Persians and putting them in a corner. So he said, I regretted doing that. I didn't want to do that. Or I regret doing that which I did. Because it is known that when you put someone in a corner, khalas, it's either, if someone is fighting and that person is pushed into a corner, it's either I fight or I just lay down and give up my life. So when the person's in a corner, he's always going to fight more fiercely. He's always going to fight in a stronger or in a harder matter. So al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu, he looked and he regretted doing that which he had done. In the battlefield, looking at the battlefield, there was over 10,000 of the Persians who were killed during that battle by the Muslimin. And the Muslimin, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with them, gave them, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gave them victory in this very important and very monumental battle of al-Buwayb. And this battle changed the view of the Persians towards the Muslimin. For al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu, after he's doing this, after he approached the battle the way that he approached it, the Persians, the change in leadership happened within Persia. Because when they saw this loss against the Muslimin, against al-Muthanna, the Persians themselves changed the whole leadership. Because as we said, it was in the leadership of Rastam and Fayrazan, a female and a male. So now the blame of the losses of the Persians always goes to who? To leadership. You're the one who's losing the battles, so the blame goes upon the leadership of those who were leading these battles, who was Rastam and Fayrazan. So what happened at that time, the leaders of Persia, they approached Rastam and Fayrazan and they said that there's something that needs to be changed. This continuous loss, this continuous flogging that the Muslimin is doing to us, it is your fault. You are not able, you are not knowing, because the people of these empires, they have become used to the existence of a head, used to the existence of a name. It comes around the name. Even the Muslimin, as the Muslimin, now the Muslimin, why are the Muslimin lost? Why are the Muslimin running around each party in a direction, each party is going somewhere? Because there's no head that is controlling. There's no head that is in charge of the Muslimin. There's no Khalifa. That's why from the loss, when the Khilafah was dismantled forcibly upon the Muslimin from the inside and from the outside, the Muslimin scattered after that. Imagine after the Khilafah, this is when all the different distribution of the lands of the Muslimin, Palestine goes to the Jews, Lebanon, Syria gather, the whole marking of the borders of the Muslim lands was marked, and imagine as if the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, exactly as the Prophet ﷺ, he described it. تُوشَكُ أَن تَدَاعَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْأُمَمُ كَمَا تَدَاعَ الْأَكَلَةُ إِلَى قَصْعَتِهَا. The nations are about to fall upon you, come upon you, gather around you like the people gather around a table. And this is what happened to the Muslimin. And imagine the lands of the Muslimin was what bordered around. You take this, you take this, and it wasn't marked for our benefit, it was marked for their benefit. The French, you take Lebanon, Syria, gather. The English, you take such and such. In the beginning, Palestine was in the hands of the English, the British. And then it was given over to the Jews. It was passed over to the Jews. Learn the history of the greatest lessons are learned from history. The history of the Muslimin, the history of civilization. There are beautiful books that are written. Imam Ibn Khaldun, one of the great minds of the Muslimin, Ibn Khaldun, he has an introduction, Muqaddimat Ibn Khaldun. It's an introduction of civilization, of society. And he mentions how the civilizations run, how society runs. And he mentions many things that, subhanAllah, it's a sunnah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throughout the creation. For the Muslimin just sat back while the people took over the lands of the Muslimin. And then where are we now? There's no appointed leader. Human beings need a leader. Human beings need someone to follow him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with a just leader. A leader that fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A leader that will establish the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And give us the strength. Give the Muslimin, because as long as we are like this, we are always going to be in a position of weakness. كَغُثَاءِ السَّيْلِ, the foam on the top of the sea, worthless. You push it around as you like. And this is what the state of the Muslimin, and the core problem or the core reason behind that is what? Al-Wahm. As the Prophet ﷺ mentions in the hadith. Al-Wahm. قالوا ما الوهن يا رسول الله؟ قال حب الدنيا وكراهية الموت. He said, what is wahm? Rasulullah, they said, Nabi ﷺ, he said, the love of the dunya and the hatred to die, or the hating to die, or not wanting to die. حب الدنيا. When the dunya overwhelms the heart, the akhirah, the wanting to please Allah, it leaves the heart. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who are attached to the akhirah, from those who are attached to the good deeds. So now the Persians, they want to find a new leadership. So they search through all the concubines, all the wives of Kisra, all the ladies that Kisra had married, and in the hundreds, all the concubines, to find a son, a legal inherit, who can inherit the legacy of Kisra. No one is found. Until after the search goes on, they find a son of the brother of Kisra. A son of the brother of Kisra. So they bring this child. He was 20, not child, he was a young man, 21 to 23 years old. And he is appointed as the leader of the Persian Empire, Yazdajrid. His name is Yazdajrid. And he was appointed as the leader of the Persian armies, and all the Persian Empire gathered behind him. And when he became leader, because he is a inherit, he is from the lineage of the family of Kisra, even though it's the son of his brother, but he is a legal inheritor of the empire of Kisra. So when he was appointed as the leader, the enthusiasm of the Persian people increased. To the extent where, and all of this news is already with the Muslimin, is already with al-Muthanna. So when this news reaches al-Muthanna, and the people around the areas in which al-Muthanna and the Muslimin had made treaties with them, when they heard of this news, they all broke the treaties with the Muslimin and joined with the Persians again. So now a large amount of land that the Muslimin had taken over is taken back again. So al-Muthanna radiallahu anhu, he begins to what? He begins to retreat, he begins to return back. And all these areas are going back and joining the Persian empire again. And the news reaches to Umar radiallahu anhu. So Umar radiallahu anhu, this was during the what? During the month of Dhul Qa'dah. During the month of Dhul Qa'dah. Now we have Ramadan, Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah. So Dhul Qa'dah is the month before the month of Hajj, Dhul Hijjah. So Dhul Qa'dah, everyone now in the Arabian Peninsula is preparing for Hajj. So as the people are preparing for Hajj, Umar radiallahu anhu, he sends out the word, he sends out the khutaba, the men of poetry, the people who give lessons, the people gather the people to join the army of al-Muthanna, to join the army of al-Iraq. And everyone begins to march towards there, and Umar, he advises al-Muthanna to retreat, to be closer to the lands of the Muslimin than that in the lands of the Iraq. And the two armies begin the preparations for the greatest and the biggest battle that took place with the Persians, which is known as the Battle of al-Qadisiyyah. The Battle of al-Qadisiyyah is the battle of battles that took place in Iraq against the Persian army at that time. And the Battle of al-Qadisiyyah happened between the Muslimin and between the Persians. And the next stop after al-Qadisiyyah is the capital of Persia, al-Madain. So once the Battle of Qadisiyyah ended, the next stop was al-Madain. And this is when they approached the leaders of the Persians before Yazdajrid was appointed as Kisra, as the leader of the Persians. They said that the only thing between them and al-Madain is them defeating us one more time. They defeat us one more time, they have an open route, an open way, an open route towards al-Madain. And if they reach al-Madain, then that's it, they've overtaken, they've infiltrated the Persian Empire. And this was the next stop. The next stop is the Battle of al-Qadisiyyah. And that's why Umar radiallahu anhu, he sent his instructions to al-Muthanna, retreat. Come back, leave yourself closer towards the lands of the Muslimin, wait for my instructions. All the people in front of them in Iraq returned to the Persians, and they returned their alliance with the Persians. So now it's a waiting game. And al-Muthanna, he left, Umar, he said to leave guards within the oasis of Iraq, so that if anything is happening, the word can return back to the Muslimin. It's like a link of communication that is left between, or is left in the front lines of the Persians, all the way back to the Muslimin, so that if any changes, anything is happening, the word can return, the word can come back towards the Muslimin. And inshallah ta'ala, after Ramadan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma ballighna Ramadan, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who witness Ramadan. After the month of Ramadan, bi'idhni ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He keeps us from those who, إذا خلانا طيبين, as they say, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to continue in this path, after the month of Ramadan, inshallah ta'ala, we will continue with the Khilafah of Umar radiallahu anhu, and we are nearly towards the end. It's been a long journey with Umar radiallahu anhu, and it could be double, triple, the person can go on forever, for a very long time when it comes to Umar radiallahu anhu. But inshallah ta'ala, as we know, the month of Ramadan is this week, Wednesday or Thursday, depending on the lunar month, depending on when the month of Ramadan begins. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from those who witness the month of Ramadan, and make us from those who benefit from the month of Ramadan, and make us from those who are forgiven during the month of Ramadan. And the person if hasn't started preparing already, you should start preparing from now. Person should start preparing from now. Mentally, physically, within the household, not just food-wise, even in the household with regards to the ibadah, where I'm going to pray, where I'm going to read the Qur'an, where I'm going to do this. Unfortunately, our ancestors and the culture of the Arab mainly has made the month of Ramadan a month of food, and a month of eating, and a month of preparing. You find families, subhanallah, a week, 2 weeks before Ramadan begins, the preparation begins. But what preparation begins? The preparation of food. How many mu'ajjanat, how many pastries am I going to freeze? How many tabkha war'inab am I going to put in the freezer? How many tabkha, how many times am I going to do kibbeh in the month of Ramadan? How many? This is what happens. And the preparation begins. The pantry is cleaned out. Do I need how many kilos of rice do I need? All this preparation happens, and the importance is put on food. Because the month of Ramadan, to a lot of people, to many families, has become the month of food. Whereas the reason for month of Ramadan is for you to lessen the intake of food, and for you to feel, because the ibadah, when the person is in a state of hunger, unfortunately we've programmed ourselves to become weak. Whereas you will find the most beautiful time of worship is when a less amount of food is taken. That's why some advice before the month of Ramadan comes, take it upon yourself that at the time of iftar, even for your families, the one who has wife, who has children, has grandchildren, to try this month to lessen the intake of food and to lessen the amount of food that the person takes, even if it's just at the time of iftar. At the time of iftar, eat a bit less so you can go out to Taraweeh and you feel refreshed. You're not in Taraweeh and you're just... Because the first thing that the food does is makes you what? Makes you tired. It weighs down the body. There's no more room. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, يَكْفِي لِبْنِ آدَمَ لُقَيْمَاتٍ يَقُمْنَ بِهِ صُلْبًا. It is sufficient for the son of Adam a small amount of bites to strengthen themselves, to give themselves strength. Sugar, water, to keep yourself running, to keep your body running. Your body needs it. فَإِنْ كَانَ لَابُدْ. If you're not able to suffice yourself with a small amount of bites of food that you take, فَثُلُثٌ لِلطَّعَامِ وَثُلُثٌ لِلْمَاءِ وَثُلُثٌ لِلْهَوَاءِ. Then have 1/3 for food, 1/3 for water, 1/3 for air to breathe. 1/3 for air to breathe. Now we compress it. We compress it. 2/3 for food, and then 2/3 on top of it for water, and then the last ختامه مسك ختامه حلوى. The ending of it is pastries and sweets and kada. And then the person thinks, oh, why I'm not allowed, why can't I pray, why can't I do this, and why can't, the person is bloated, the person is, wallahi, try it. Eat, I'm not saying not to eat, but eat a small amount. Eat a small amount. Try the month of Ramadan. Before you begin to eat, break your fast on tamr, on rutab, drink a bit of water, get up, pray, maghrib, pray to rak'ah, you've got your body ready, and then you go, you sit, and you eat a bit, you rest, you get yourself ready for Taraweeh, get yourself ready for praying, and then you go and you pray with your body relaxed, and then after that you want to eat, and suhoor and kada, the person continues, and the night is long. MashaAllah, alhamdulillah, Isha now is 6:35. Now we pray here, inshallah, we begin Isha at 7. By 8 o'clock you're finished. You still have, mashallah, a long time at night to make up what you missed out on iftar. But to not allow this month to be from the months of eating, and to try as much as you can to stay away from the haram, to keep your eyes, your gazes lowered, to keep your hands away from the haram, to keep your body away from the haram. And this is what will enable you to what? To benefit from the month of Ramadan. As the Prophet ﷺ, he said, how many people out there, they get nothing from fasting except hunger and thirst. Hunger and thirst, that's all they get from fasting. Why? Because their understanding of fasting is limited to that. Their understanding of siyam is limited to me abstaining from water, from drinking, from sexual pleasures with the wife, between the wife and husband, and that's siyam. And that's it, it ends there. No, siyam is much beyond that. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, كُلُّ عَمْلِ ابْنِ آدَمَ لَهْ إِلَّا الصَّوْمِ فَإِنَّهُ لِي وَأَنَا أَجْزِي بِهِ. All the deeds of son of Adam are for him. 7 times 10, 70, 700 multiplied. Imagine, except Siyam. The reward for Siyam is unknown. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He knows the reward for Siyam. So it's much greater than just fasting and abstaining from food and water. That's why Imam al-Ghazali and Imam al-Qudam al-Maqdisi and the ulama have said that Siyam is of three categories. Siyam al-Awam, the general person fasting, all he does is fast from food and water, and that's it. And then you have Siyam al-Khawas or al-Khusus, which is the one that he fasts from food, water, the normal fasting, and he fasts from the disobedience of Allah. He fasts from doing anything haram that displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He fasts from all of these matters. And then you have Siyam Khawas al-Khawas, which is the highest of levels, and they are the ones who fast from everything except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Khalas, they abstain from everything, not just the food, the water, abstain from all the haram, all the kada, all they abstain from everything except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They connect themselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make the month of Ramadan a month in which we connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a month in which we benefit, a month in which it changes us towards the better, towards doing the better actions, and that He grants us the iman in our hearts in the month of Ramadan. Allahumma ameen. Subhanak Allahumma bihamdik, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaykum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Every Muslim dreams to be up in Jannah, 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 Jannah. A pious person's destiny. Inshallah in Jannah, 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 Jannah.